Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 185. TidyX is a screencast where we go through and explain how our code works. My name's Ellis Hughes.
My name's Patrick Ward. Thanks for checking in with us at episode 185 of TidyX. We've taken a bit of a break, but we're back. Summertime usually leads to breaks, so here we are.
Life got away from us.
As always, be sure to like and subscribe on that YouTube channel. If you want to support our work, we're appreciative of anything you'd like to give on our Patreon page. That said, we'll jump into 185 here. If you need a refresher on purrr, we're advancing our purrr techniques. So if you need a refresher or you need the kind of 101 course, episode 184 is where you're going to find that. Remember, purrr is a package that sort of helps us leverage lots of functions and map over lists to do a lot of different things and make our life a bit easier without writing endless for loops and hoping for the best when trying to debug those for loops.
Yep.
So today we're advancing our purrr knowledge. We're advancing to more of the, we're moving into more of the advanced functions. And we're going to do that with some web scraping of Independence Day data.
Yes. So we originally wrote this more around the 4th of July. So this is to celebrate a little bit of the Independence Day in the States here, where we thought it'd be amusing and a good application of purrr to go to Wikipedia's list of national Independence Days and pull this data down and show you some techniques you can use in purrr to work with this table to turn it into something that you can use, and then also answer a question where there's this amusing saying that every 4 days a country celebrates Independence Day from the UK. And so I thought it was amusing to see, like, hey, could we actually verify if that is a true statement or is that totally false? So let's figure out whether that statement is true or not using purrr and this list of Independence Days from Wikipedia. So the libraries we're going to be using today are tidyverse. So that is going to, for all our data manipulation needs, including purrr. We're going to use rvest for pulling down the website for us and doing some of the web scraping. And then finally, janitor to help us do a little bit of cleanup. So again, with rvest, we're going to use the read_html function and pull that full web page from Wikipedia that I was just showing you. And we're going to assign that to Independence Wiki. So the first function from purrr that we're going to be using is the pluck function. So pluck allows you to specify elements from a list that you want to be pulling out and assigning or using downstream of that function. And so if we look at the object, it's kind of an UGO HTML document object, which is difficult to work with. You need to understand HTML. We're going to go pull a little bit of HTML and say we're going to use rvest HTML elements and pull out the tables from this. So this is an element table in HTML. And we're going to pull that out, and that's going to give us two different node sets where we have two tables. Now we know through investigation that the second table is actually the table that we want. You can actually see the caption, list of Independence Days of countries around the world. So we know that is the element we want to be pulling. So we say pluck 2. And so that's now going to give us this HTML node that is containing all the table, this table right here that we want to be using that has all the data that we care about. Once we have that, rvest has a handy dandy HTML table function, and then we're going to throw it into clean names out of janitor because the names are they have spaces in it, they have capitalization in it. Let's just get rid of that. And then the next step is date of holiday and year of event. They have some of the article references listed in it. So if we go down here to like here, it's going to be 1816 and then a reference to where that's actually where they're getting that information from. For our purposes, it's not going to be useful. So we're going to mutate across the columns date of holiday and year of event and use gsub to remove any cases where we have a square brace, some number, square brace, and if it's there, replace it with a blank string. So just get rid of it. And so now that we've done that, we have this raw table that has the country, the holiday that they're celebrating, the date of said holiday, and the year that holiday occurred, and as well as the country they got independence from. And so we have all that there. So now we're going to start pulling this and manipulating it so that we can kind of start to answer our own questions as well as show you some fun or the different functions that exist in purrr. Or yeah. So Patrick, how does this work here?
Yeah, so before we apply this to our newly web scraped data frame, Tibble, we will just go through the function safely. So safely is a function from the purrr package, and it's going to allow us to basically a pass up whatever function we want to use to it. And what safely does, as the name would apply, is it's going to return the results to us in a way that allows us to protect us from ourselves. So sometimes when you're working with large and vast amounts of data, it's really easy to make a boo-boo or to miss something. And all of a sudden, that miss propagates all the way down. And
Mhm.
so in this example here, Ellis is setting up in line 33. We're going to set up this element called safe as date, which is safely going to run that function as .date, which converts strings to date variables, right? So when we run this, otherwise null basically just tells it if it can't do the job, do something else. In this case, it's going to give us a null. It's going to pass us this issue. And then quiet lets us know what we actually want returned to us when the result comes out. So basically, it's going to explain to us, and you'll see this, it's going to get reported out as kind of I think it's a list object, but it's going to get reported out. Quiet is going to be at the bottom, which is basically telling us what the error is. So there it is. So in this case, when we ran the function the first time, the asDate function saw the values right there as the first argument and said, yeah, this makes sense. I can convert this to a date. That's July 4th, 2024. We pass the format that we'd like to get returned back to us for that date. And you can see the error gets turned out as null. Nothing to talk about here.
It didn't error, so the value is null.
Correct. The next line, however, obviously there is no such thing as July 99th in our calendar. So in this case, when we pass we pass the date, we pass the format, the result gets kicked out in NA. Right?
Mhm. Also, normally the quiet makes it so that you don't get those error messages or warning messages that you
Yeah.
normally might get. So if we drop that out and then we throw this in there, it'll still. Oh, we must have. I know we have a new R session, so it's protecting us from it. But normally it would give us a warning about what's going on. That like, hey, I can't convert this. But by setting quiet equals true, it's protecting us from that and not putting that message into our console. So
Mhm.
we're just gonna leave that in there. But this is the way. So it takes a function, and then if that function fails, the result that you would want to have it output, and then it returns quiet. So it allows you to consistently be able to run that function in a way where you're not quite sure if you expect it to run properly or it might throw an error, but you want to use it anyway for the 99% of situations where it will work, and then you'll handle the cases where it doesn't work later on in your
Yeah.
pipeline. And so this
By
it's
setting that otherwise, you can filter to those and then identify the potential issues, maybe data entry problem where that's supposed to be the 9th of July and someone accidentally hit a second
Yeah.
digit.
But so you can address that later, but you just like it's going to work for most of these cases, so we're just going to move forward.
Yeah.
That's not the only function that purrr has that allows you to manipulate one of the functions that you're trying to use. So there's possibly, which allows you to possibly run a function, and then quietly, which won't protect you from errors, but it's going to capture all the messages and outputs that might be produced. So any warnings, any errors, any normal text that gets produced quietly will capture that for you, so you can use that later on if you have a use for the actual strings and values that get printed out, but they're not actually stored as an actual value. And
Yeah.
so it takes a very similar format as this, where you're creating a new function, wrapping the function you want to be used with either safely, possibly, or quietly. So now that we have that function, we can take that independence table raw and let's turn that into our actual independence table that we want to be using. So we're going to show you how you can use the different types of mapping that exist in purrr. Again, going from that very basic map underscore type output function up to applying it to now across two different columns and then n number of columns. So I'll take you through this first one here. So if we wanted to calculate, or not calculate, but record what is the date and store that now as a date object for us to use later on, we're going to say map vec. So map across all the values that we're going to put into it and return it as a vector. So normally you might see this as map underscore double or map underscore car or chr or I forget what logical is, but
Isn't it map LGL?
yeah,
There it is.
LGL.
Yeah.
So map vec doesn't define the vector type that's supposed to be coming out to it, so it lets it be a little bit more flexible. Of course, that kind of breaks the logic a little bit of purrr saying, hey, you're predefining the output that you're supposed to be getting, but you can predefine it using .p type if you want to. Here we're not going to do that, so we're going to say map vec across date of holiday, and then do the safe as date, put in the string there, and say actually the format is going to be %e, which says the day of the month, and then %b, which says the month as the full string. So like January, February, March, April, all of that. And then because it gets returned as a list, we only really care about the result in the situation. So we're going to say $result. So that's to record the date of the holiday as if it were happening this year. But what if you want to actually get the date object for the year that it actually occurred? Patrick, how would you do that?
Yeah. So we didn't talk about this last week. We only introduced the map functions, but map2 does as you'd imagine, which is allows you to pass two um, two columns in there. So in this example here, we have map2 vec. So it's the same as above. We're getting a vector returned to us. We have a .x variable and a .y variable. The .x variable is date of holiday, and the .y variable is year of event. And we're going to utilize that same safe as date, which is, remember, running the as date function in a safe manner. And now, because we have an x and a y variable, we're going to paste in the results of the safe as date. We're going to paste in the results of the safe as date x variable, date of holiday, and then the y variable, year of event. So both x and y. We have our format there. And again, just like above, because this is getting returned as a list, the only thing we're really caring about here is going to be that result. So we snag the $result on the end of that. So this is how you can use map for two variables at a time. Of course, why stop there? If two is good, three or more could be better. And that's where you then get into pmap. And as you can imagine, this is doing the exact same thing now because we have more than two columns. You're going to pass a list here of n number, however many you want. And now the result there is going to be written as a function, which is taking each of those columns, and it is pasting a nice little sentence in for us, which is long, and it says in the year of the event, independence from B, whatever country that was achieved on C, the date of the holiday, and is called D, so the name of the actual independence holiday. So now if we run this whole thing, we get a few new columns that are added to our cool independence table. They should be right over at the end of it. Yeah, there we go. Yep. So we have a holiday date, a holiday event date, and now we have event from description, which is that whole kind of sentence, right?
Yep.
And what if we wanted to yank out that sentence by row in a clean way?
Yeah. So the next cool function that exists in purrr is the walk function. So map allows you to apply a function and map across all the different elements that you put into it and get some value out of it. But sometimes you've got a function that you want to run where it is running, but you're not actually caring about the direct result, the value that it returns. What you're caring about is the side effect that it does. So oftentimes this will actually be useful if you're wanting it to print out a plot or print out some sort of text based on every single value that exists in there and generate that result for you. And so the function that does that in purrr is called walk. And just like map, it's got the basic walk function, just like it's got the basic map function. Then it's got additional variants of walk to allow you to apply it to more types of input, just like map has here. And so the idea is that we're going to pull out this column here, and you can see it prints it out as a list element. But we actually want to walk across every element and print it out nicely. This is an incredibly basic application of this. Your imagination is the limit for the number of ways you can apply this. So here now, rather than printing it all as a single or as a list that's being printed out, it's going to print out every single entry here. And so you can say, all right, in 1776, independence from the Kingdom of Great Britain was achieved July 4th and is called Independence Day or the 4th of July. So that was unintentionally grabbing the U.S. 4th
Yeah,
of
nice,
July.
nice spot there. Yeah.
Or in 1980, independence from the UK was achieved in or on 18 April and is called Independence Day. And so we're just pulling all that information together and printing it out really nicely there. So that's the walk function. But the purrr also has a really cool function that I've actually never used before, but now that I know that it exists, I'm definitely gonna figure out ways that I can apply this, is the compose function. And so the compose function allows you to list put in several different functions that you want to apply one after the other, kind of like a pipe almost. Uh, but it's you enter in the functions would want to apply one after the other. And so if we wanted to wanted to sort, then take the difference of the values and take a mean of the values, what we could do in compose is first you enter mean, then diff, then sort. And so the reason they wrote it like that is because it looks more similarly to the way you might actually write those series of commands if you were to be doing it with the parentheses, or basically science or math notation. So first you take the sort, so that's the most far right version. Then you take the diff, which is the middle, and then the mean, which is the first function you'd enter in compose. Now you can switch the order by changing .dir from backward to forward, but by default it's going to be backwards. And so this is important to note, which is why we're putting it in here in this order so that we're not confusing ourselves. But we're now going to assign this to the MDS function. So now we're creating a new function called MDS, which is going to first sort, then take the difference, then take the mean of those functions. All right, so now that we've got that, what we can do is we can create from our independence table the independence froms function, or the table, excuse me. So we're going to take independence table and we're going to split across independence from. And so this is independence from is the country from which the country that we have in our table got independence from. So for example, if we look at this again, Antigua and Barbuda got independence from the UK, or Argentina got independence from the Spanish Empire, or Armenia, two different situations here, Azerbaijan. So anyway, this far right one is the one we're going to be grouping on because we want to answer that question, if you remember from the very beginning, of does the UK or is the independence from the UK celebrated every 4 days?
Okay, yeah.
So then we're going to split on each one of those countries so that we can get a unique data set for each one of those. And we're going to map across every one of those because now it's a list. And we're going to create a tibble for each one of them. So independence from, so the unique country that the independence is from, the number of countries that got independence from that country, say country 15 times fast. When did countries start getting independence from them? When was the latest independence achieved? And then mean days between, which is applying our new MDS function. And we're going to create a vector that is when basically when is the last independence and when is the next independence, and then so that way we actually have like a full year's worth of data. Otherwise, if all of them bunched in the very beginning of the year and then nothing later into the year, it wouldn't have the duration between the first and the last independence. And then we're going to just store this data in an entry called data. We'll bind all those data sets together and arrange by mean days between so that we can see which countries have the least amount of time between independence and which countries have the most. So if we run that, oh, helps if I actually run and create MDS, run that,
Yeah.
and now we can ignore some of these errors. It's just saying negative infinities exist, which is fine for us. Now we can view independence froms. Helps if, again, if I type it correctly. And so we can see the United Kingdom with 12 days in between is the shortest. And they've had 51
51 total
countries.
countries. Yeah.
Here, let's actually print it out in the console. I think that's a little bit easier than viewing it there. There we go. So the United Kingdom, 51 countries. Countries started getting independence in 1867. So I think there may actually be an issue with this data set
Why is
where,
that?
because this says the UK and the earliest was 1867, but we know the United States got independence in 1776. So I bet you it's the
Oh,
different
maybe.
names of the so I think it might have been the British Empire before in this data set. So let's look. Empire of
Oh,
Japan,
yeah.
United Kingdom, France. So apparently, yeah. So I think there's a little bit more data cleanup, but the purpose of the
Yeah. Yeah.
of what we were trying to do today is show you how to use purrr. We did not actually answer our question apparently. Now that I look at this a little bit closer,
So it is
but
possible that it's still every 4 days.
yes,
We're 3 times off right now, but if we correct for if we rename countries that would fall under the umbrella of United Kingdom, it's possible we're that it's
exactly.
possible that shrinks. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's do a quick verification here. So apparently, several different countries were combined together. We need to look at this data apparently a little bit more. But here we go, Kingdom of Great Britain.
Oh yeah, that's one. Yeah.
So I think there is, or American American Colonization Society. Interesting. So yeah, I think we may have to look at this a little bit more. But interestingly, 4 countries got independence from the United States. The more you learn.
There you
Uh,
go.
so with that, that is again, let's focus on what we learned today, which was
Yeah.
how we can use purrr to calculate a whole bunch of different things and apply a whole bunch of different functions, all very quickly and easily while we're working with lists. With that, that's episode 185 of TidyX. Thank you all for joining us. As always, my name is Ellis Hughes. You can find me on social media, various social media sites at Ellis_Hughes. Got that out.
My name's Patrick Ward. You can find me on X at OSP Patrick at tidy_explain is where the screencast lives on X. Of course, easiest way to hit us up is on the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, questions, comments, etc. All that good stuff. If you'd like to support the show, we do have a Patreon page. We're super thankful for anything you'd like to give.
Thank you all so much and keep on exploring your world.